Oh, here we are. I see it. Hello. Right. I shared in case anyone wants to listen. You don't like seeing you on the video. Yeah, I've put a few in there. I did. It, right. Right. You're on part five. So you still got like a 2 hour chapter in part five. And then like another 1 hour chapter. All right. Would you like to should we do an intro? I was just reading that. I don't know. That's just such a good quote. I read that and I was like, the other one, which I don't know that you've gotten to this, but it's to love the journey is to accept no such end. I have found through painful experience that the most important step a person can take is always the next one. And that's a good one too. I hear you, but I'm hearing you on this. Hmm, that's weird. Hold on a second.
Here we go. Testing one, two. Now I got it.
Okay,
All right. Sorry about that. Now we can start.
let's see. Okay, yep. Yeah, guys.
All right. Sorry about that.
So read the quote again.
Is there another one you thought was better than that one,
No,
or
I like that one a lot.
I wish I knew the context around it though. I don't have like that section of the book pulled up or anything, but
See, I think that one and the one I read are both part of chapter 5. And I think, so do you, I can't remember. Do you know what Oathbringer is?
I know that Oathbringer is a book.
Okay, you know it's a book and the
Yeah,
sword.
and the sword. Yeah,
Okay, so you know it's the book because they didn't.
and
He didn't mention that until later, and then you find out that all
yeah,
these things are coming from Oathbringer.
and it's like uh, right now that is like a key thing. Like the Way of Kings was a book. I'm
Right,
sure Rhythms of War is a book. Oathbringer's a book. Like every book title in this series is a book within a book.
right,
Yep. And I remember I made the joke too. I was like, every book can't be a book within a book, but that's what it is. That's what happens. Every
right.
book is a book in a book. um, now let's just get into it. So, this
Welcome
episode,
to Fireside Palaver.
Fireside Palaver, episode something. I'm not sure what episode we're on. It's been a minute since we did an episode.
Yeah, it has.
We're in like the holiday season now, so like it's the busy time of year for everybody. Plus, you recently had your back surgery. You mentioned it in one of our last episodes, but you've actually had that done now.
Yes.
How's that going? How are you doing?
Now I'd say I don't know, 85%, something like that, maybe. Like I
That's
don't
not
really
bad.
have. I can feel like mainly the pain I feel is where the surgery incision was. It still kind of bothers me a little bit, but
Yeah,
and I'm still not supposed to do like heavy lifting, bending, lifting heavy stuff. So pretty much just been sitting around and I have to walk. So like I'll get up and walk around the house or walk around the yard. I recently
yeah.
started going back to the Y and walking on a treadmill for like 30 minutes.
I think we
So fun
finally
stuff.
we finally canceled our Y membership. We had it forever. We were only using it for the pool, and we finally
Right.
we finally canceled it. It's a lot to pay to use
It
for two
is.
months out of the year.
Well, that's, I used to go pretty regularly and then all that
Yeah.
started like a year and a half ago. And same thing, Cooper was the only one that was doing it and he was just on the swim team.
Oh,
So
okay. Yeah.
like he would go and swim and then he kind of stopped doing that. So we were just paying monthly. So I was like, man, it's cold outside. It's been rainy. So I was like, I'm just going to go, why? We're paying for it and walk on a
Yeah.
treadmill.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's been boring. I mean, I haven't worked, obviously.
Yeah. I went
Won't
in
be
there.
back to work.
I went in there not too long ago, and they looked like they were like having a terrible time without you there.
Oh,
It looked
I
really,
went,
really busy.
so I went in for the first time, I think it must have been a week ago because I went on a Sunday. And yeah, so like, this whole thing was a planned thing. It wasn't like, hey,
Yeah.
you have to have immediate surgery. Well, they didn't plan. So like, they've got, um, two a full time ARA who is basically working warehouse too, because he came from the warehouse. So they're splitting time. And then there's another part timer, and then there was a guy that they hired literally the day before my surgery is the day he started.
Man,
And so like, yeah,
it's
it's been
crazy.
interesting. Like people have been will text me like, man, what's this or what's this? And I'm like, yeah, I'll try and explain something to you or whatever, but
I should
I'm
have
not
offered to
looking
come back.
forward. Yeah, I know, right? Um, I can't imagine. Well, luckily I'll be going back in first part of January, so maybe it'll be a little bit toned down by then.
Yeah.
So I'm not looking forward to just get thrown right into the fire, but
Well,
um,
it's good that it seems like you're recovering fast, and I
yeah.
guess I guess time will tell if it like really had like the impact that you're hoping
Well, I
for.
can
But
I can definitely tell it's helped.
Okay.
Because I don't know if you remember, I had like the numb foot and the
Yeah.
numb part of the
Yeah.
leg. Well, so like after the surgery, like the doctor said like your that nerve that runs down
Mhm.
your leg and everything. He said it heals about 1 millimeter a day.
Hmm.
So he said in essence you'll be about 3 months, and then he said it'd probably be longer for full. But I can already tell like different things. It's weird, like different things will like light up like a Christmas tree on my leg, and it's like he was like that's the nerves kind of like reawakening in parts and things like that. So one day like I'll have like tingling in parts of each leg. It's not just the right one. It's pretty, but like I can stand on my right leg and I've without falling. So that's
Yeah.
all.
So
So
it had gotten pretty severe, man. That's crazy.
yeah, it definitely gotten severe. But yeah, I mean I've been watching lots of TV
Yeah.
and yeah, I've watched. So the funny thing is, when I got back here, I was like, yeah, I'm going to watch some TV, and I started watching Dahmer. I don't know
Yeah.
if you watched that on
I
Netflix
I
yet.
haven't watched it. I've heard enough about it that I'm sure it's good, but I don't know if
Well,
it.
it's really good,
Yeah.
but yeah, I watched like maybe the second day after I got home, I started watching it, and over 2 days, I watched like 3 episodes, and I realized that with the combination of the heavy pain medication and just the pain and stuff,
Yeah.
I didn't remember any of it. Like I was like, I'm gonna
Oh
have to
wow.
like I watched 3 episodes and then I was like, I can't focus. And then when I finally went back to watch it, I had to start over because like I don't
Yeah.
remember anything I watched. Um, so I watched that. I've watched I watched Rings of Power.
Yeah.
Um,
I started it. We got like halfway through. I want to finish it. My buddy Josh tells me I need to finish it. He really liked it a lot.
I liked
Um,
it.
I could tell that I liked it, but I wasn't like super like into it. You know what I mean?
That's how
Otherwise, I would have finished it by now.
if I wouldn't have been like literally doing nothing, it would have taken me longer to watch it
Hmm.
because I wasn't until toward the end. I wasn't really
Yeah,
invested.
that's
And
what I
then
heard. I heard it gets better in the last episodes. Like I heard that
yeah,
they're
like
the
the last
best part.
two to three episodes are much better.
I've got to go. I've got to go watch it. I really feel like I just finished. Becca and I just finished season 2 of White Lotus
Yeah,
on
I haven't watched
HBO.
that. I've heard it's pretty good.
It's really good. It's really good. I like season 2 better than I like season 1, I think, but it is just it's one of those shows where it's not a typical show that I would watch. Like it's a little too like risque, gossipy kind of stuff for me.
Right,
But the way the story is told from this perspective of like the show's like really about like colonialism and like you know western versus like it's all about like it's almost a political show. Like it has all these deeper meanings than just what's on the surface, but then what is on the
right,
surface is all this like sort of like relationship drama and like and then there's like murders. And this season had a really good twist like in the last 2 episodes where you really
right,
saw some things come together. It was like, oh my, that was the whole time. That was there the whole time. And I didn't realize it. Um,
right.
it's a really good show. It kind of reminds me of the show's completely different, but the book is similar. When we were doing Station 11, and
Yeah.
that writer
Oh gosh.
Emily Saint is behind me right here.
Yeah.
I'm trying to read it. Uh, I can't see her last watch Station 11, and then I read a few of her books. It's that kind of story where it's just you're learning about these people's lives, and then you don't realize that their lives intertwine with the other characters and that sort of thing. But it's
Right.
pretty cool. But yeah, I would definitely say it's not the type of show I normally watch, but it's pretty good.
Now another show that I finished, um, that they did the last episode on Netflix was Dead to Me. Have you watched that?
No, no, I haven't watched that. I haven't watched a
Like
Netflix show in a
you
while.
and you and Becca, and Becca would like a lot.
Yeah.
It's very dark humor.
Mm.
but it's got Christina Applegate
Okay.
and what's her name, the girl from Freaks and Geeks, and
It's called
oh, what
Dead to
else?
Me.
Dead to Me, and it's that like essentially it's Christina Applegate's character. Her husband is killed in a hit and run, and she goes and she can't handle it, so she goes to this group therapy thing for
Oh,
like
it's got
people.
that James Marsden guy
It's
that
got
was
James Marsden in it, and
he was
but
in a Stephen King show. I can't remember
yeah,
what show.
he was in. I finished Westworld too. He was in Westworld,
Oh,
which
okay,
was
yeah.
another good. But the show is very dark. There's a lot of death, a lot of cussing, a lot of like but it is hilarious. I mean, it is so funny, and there's all kinds of twists to it, and like things like that. Y'all should watch that, definitely.
I'll check
Um,
that out.
but um, so kind of on the skipping down to idea for show, like when we're not, because these books are huge, and we've been trying to find things to fill in gaps and stuff like that.
Right, yeah.
Um, so I know you watched Dark, didn't you, on Netflix?
Yeah, yes, I did.
And that's a really
I
good
watched
show.
the first two seasons. I think I'm not caught up. I definitely got to a point where I've not seen every episode. I know that.
Right. So another show I started watching, and I'm not done with it,
Yeah.
on Netflix. It's called 1899,
1899.
and it's by the same people that did Dark. And it was like one of the top 10 shows. It
Okay.
is there's 8 episodes, and it is just as trippy as Dark is. It is mind bending.
Yeah.
It's hard to describe. It's like there's so much like deep stuff going on in it, and I thought if you wanted to, you had time, maybe we watch that
Yeah. I'll be
and
down to do
talk
that.
about it, because like okay, we haven't said, but there will be spoilers in this show. So if not only with Oathbringer, but some other things. But you know the twist in Dark where you find out the main character's
Yeah, yeah.
dad
So
is the
spoiler
is
for
the
dark. Spoiler
yeah,
for
spoiler for
dark.
Dark.
Drop,
You know,
drop, drop. If you don't want to hear a spoiler for dark.
you
Yeah.
know who his dad is,
Right,
right?
right. Yeah,
So
yeah,
so like this show is like that, like all kind, and there's like
yeah. Okay.
symbols and meanings, and like there's like this thing, the very first episode, like 10 or 15 minutes into it, I'm watching it, and this thing happens. I was like, I wanted to look around. I was by myself. I was like, did anybody see that? Like,
Yeah.
what was that? Like, so it's really good. And then like same thing like Dark, at the end of like every episode, something crazy happens, and then they just end the show, and you're like,
Wow.
I got to go to the next episode.
It
It's
looks like
really
there's
good.
8 episodes out for it right now. That must be the whole
Yes,
first season.
that's the whole first season. Yeah,
Oh wow.
and I'm
Yeah,
on
no.
episode. I haven't watched 7 or 8 yet. I've
I
watched 1 through 6.
You mentioned in the last I think it was one of these. I think it was probably when we were doing the last Oathbringer episode. You mentioned that you were interested in this show
Yes.
because I remember there being a show called 1899. Yes.
Yeah, I think we did talk about it. Yeah. So definitely, if you got,
I'll do that.
finish part 5 first, but like once we get done with the next show about
I
part 5, maybe we could throw one of those in there.
No, I'll be down to do that. We should watch I'll start watching it, and we could get together. And there's 8 episodes. We could do 8 podcasts
8
about it.
podcast. Yeah, I mean, because literally, like, so much crazy stuff happens on each episode. And
Yeah.
it's one of those build ups too, because then, you think something's happening, and then the next episode comes, and you think, wow,
Mm.
okay. And then, like, so yeah,
All
definitely.
right.
And like, as soon as when I was watching, I was like, yeah, Bo would like this show a lot, because it's right up there with the whole Lost craziness
Yeah.
and dark and all that stuff. So,
Nice.
um,
Yeah, I'll check it out. The director's middle name is also Bo.
oh, yeah,
Baron Bo Odar, and it's spelled like it's my spelling of bow, which I have always said was the southern spelling of bow versus because people always try to spell it the French way,
The
Beau.
French way. Yeah.
And I always like, no, it's the southern way, just
Oh,
Bo.
exactly.
But apparently this guy is, where is he from?
I, I think they're German.
Switzerland. He was born in
Switzerland. Okay.
Switzerland. Yeah. So
So one of
apparently,
the things about the show, and it's not
yeah.
really spoilerly for you, but like Dark was in German.
Right. Yeah.
So this show is in English, French, German, Spanish, Portuguese, Cantonese.
Is it all dubbed, or this is all part of the story? It's all in these
It's
different
all part of
languages.
the story. Like different
Oh.
characters speak different languages,
Oh wow.
and like
Okay.
so there's subtitles obviously, but
Yeah.
like all the main characters all speak different languages,
That's
and
interesting. Yeah.
no one understands each other. And some people are bilingual, so like some of them can speak like, oh, there's Dutch. Some people speak Dutch, so it's very interesting that way too. And I have a theory about the language thing in the show, but I'll
Mm.
see if you watch it, see if you pick up on it too. But
Okay. All right. Yeah. No,
um,
I'm excited to do this. I can't wait to
yeah,
watch the
this
first
is
episode.
yeah, it's you'll really like it. Let's see what else we got. Current reading. You're just reading Oathbringer. I'm still reading Fairy Tale. I'm probably about
Yeah.
halfway through it.
I started it because I knew you were going to read it and I didn't want you to get too far ahead of me, and so I started it, but I was like, this is taking too much time away from Oathbringer, and this
Right.
book is way Oathbringer is way too long. You can see my bookmarks where I'm at. It's way too long for me to read anything else. So this has
Right.
been the only thing I've been reading just to try to get through it. Um,
Um, but yeah, it's a really good book. But yeah,
yeah, Becca's
um,
been reading it too, and she's told me a few things about it. She was crying the other day after after reading it, and I can only imagine something bad happened to the dog is the only reason why she would be crying. So, I don't know what happened yet, but
that's
um,
so like when I listen to books, I'm typically in the car,
yeah,
and I know you listen to 11/22/63.
yeah, yeah,
Um, so like at the end of 11/22/63, there's the dance.
yeah,
I don't know if you remember what I'm talking about.
yeah, 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 yeah.
I was in my car, literally ugly crying in my car, and I'm looking around like, what do people around me think if they look over, see this grown ass man just tears going down his face? And I'm just like, wow, that was
Well, to bring it back to Oathbringer, I teared up in the moment.
gosh,
I was telling. Here's the thing. I was telling Becca about, and I've noticed that since my son has been bored, any books that have to do or
kids.
songs or anything that has to do with like being a father or like
Yes,
anything like that, yeah. And I was telling Becca we were listening to the chapter where it's in part 5, but the chapter where he goes to the valley and meets the I forget the name. I forget what they call her. The lady that grants you a boon and a bane.
right,
But
yeah.
really, he's meeting. Oh man, we got to
One of
pull
the
up.
shadow people or
We got to
whatever.
pull up the names. Yeah, but whenever I was listening to that, Becca was in the car and she doesn't know what's going on, so I was giving her a little bit of explanation, and I was telling her about the moment where he burns that city and burns
Right,
his wife and I like had to stop telling the story because I was like, I don't want to just start bawling
right. It's like,
telling Becca the story. But whenever he was talking about how he not only hears her screaming in the crowds of people, but also he can hear his children, and hears
right,
Adelin's voice in that, and it's like just because he's doing what we're talking about now is that's him empathizing with like he just killed a bunch of kids and
right.
it could have been his kid, and yeah, that was a heavy moment. But no, I teared up and was literally crying driving to work, listening to the chapter about whenever he Dalinar. It's whenever he's like in the like dead in the middle of his alcoholism, and he's like drinking himself senseless to try to forget about that whole situation, like trying to forget about
Right.
all the pain and the voices that he hears all the time, um and Adolin and I gotta pull up names.
Renarin.
Renarin, yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
wanting to say. Renarin, Aelin and Renarin, they come up and they tell him that they don't believe what everybody says about him. That they know that he's just doing that right now. That he's not really that person.
Right.
Um, I was like tearing up over that. It was like too heavy, man, too heavy. That
Yeah,
chapter was like
exactly.
way too much. Um, yeah, this I guess if you don't mind, we go ahead and get into
Well,
go
one
ahead.
thing I want to mention is the Mike Flanagan thing. I don't know if you know who he is.
I
He's a
recognize
director.
I recognize the
He
name.
did Doctor Sleep, and he's done a couple Stephen King adaptations. He does mostly horror movies, and
Okay,
he did on Netflix. He did The Haunting of Bly Manor and The Haunting of Hill House TV
okay.
shows. He just signed. He had a big contract with Netflix, but he left, and they've signed Prime Video has signed him, and he is adapting The
I
Dark Tower.
s- I see this in yeah. I pulled up his name and I see the headlines are that
Yeah,
Mike
he's
Flanagan
a big King fan.
and Trevor Macy reveal the Dark Tower adaptation in works.
So their plan is to do 5 seasons and maybe 2 movies.
So
Um,
I remember whenever everybody talked about that they were making a Dark Tower movie, and I hadn't read the books at the time. I said, "There's no way they make this a movie. There's no way
well,
they
they
make a movie out of this."
I
And
went to see the movie at the movie theater, and it has
I did too.
literally
Yeah,
nothing to do with the books.
yeah, I did
I
too.
mean,
I
other
did
than
too.
character names, it has nothing
Yeah,
to do with the books.
but I knew it was going to be that way because there's no way they could take something like that was that intricate and make it a
Make it
movie,
a
even a series of movies.
right.
But a TV series, they could do it. A TV series, they could do it.
Well, see, Prime wanted to. They I don't remember who they signed to do the adaptation, and they actually filmed the um, the pilot episode,
Hmm.
and then they scrapped it because I guess they didn't like whoever was doing it the way he was doing it or whatever. I
Yeah,
guess, and so now they've signed Mike Flanagan, and they're wanting him to do it. So that's big for me. I mean, I hope it really goes through because if they do it right, I can't imagine how epic of a thing that will be. But yes,
I would think my idea would be, and we talked about this when we reviewed the second book, the drawing of the three. My idea would be that you start with the drawing of the three, and then you tell the
yes,
story of the gunslinger in flashbacks.
yes.
I think that would
There's
make
another.
the best TV
I
series.
100% agree. And there's another book which is the fourth book, which is a book about Roland when he's younger,
Yeah,
which could also be done as flashbacks too. So I think if I was doing it, I would do like you said, flashbacks with Gunslinger and with that book, and then tell the story of Eddie, Susanna, and
yeah.
uh, and Roland. So anyway,
I'm
that's
excited to dive
I'm
back
excited
into
about
that
that.
too.
Yeah,
When we ready to read the next. I've purchased the third book, but I haven't cracked it open yet.
Wastelands.
Yeah.
All right, so now to the giant magnum opus,
Not even.
whatever you want to call it.
This is not even the thickest book in the series
I
so
know,
far.
right? Well, I
This
went. Me and Cooper went to Books a Million the other day,
yeah.
and I was like, "I'm gonna look at the Sanderson books." And I looked at the next one. I was like, "God, dog, it's bigger." I think.
They all get like 500 pages longer, each one of them. Yeah, I know. The Way of Kings was like the longest book I ever read until I read the next book, and then that book was the longest book I ever read until I read this one, and until I read the next one. Well, this one will
Right,
be the longest.
exactly.
um, they are crazy long. This podcast has got me reading again, and like I've read more books this year than I've read like since I was in high school. But not only that, I mean, you count the books I've read this year, and this number of words. I've read
Right,
I've read more words this year than I've probably read in my entire life.
exactly. That
It's crazy. Um,
I you could definitely kill somebody with that book.
oh
Um,
yes, for sure, for sure.
but
I but it's good though. So that's the thing is like so the audio book is 55 hours long. And the next one is longer than that. I think it's like 57 or 62 or something like that. Um, and a guy at work, I was telling him, I was like, man, I got 12 hours to go in this book, via audio, and I've listened, and like it's 55. At that time, I think I had 20 hours to go, and I was like, I've already listened to like 24 hours and
Yes.
34 hours, and he was like, that's crazy. And then he mentioned he's a Dark Tower fan, and he mentioned one of the bigger books in the Dark Tower series, and he said, how long is that book? So I looked it up on Audible, and it was like 26 hours or something like that.
Right.
Which just shows like how like these things are insanely long. But he was like, but are they worth it? And I was like, yeah, they're really good. It's a really good book, but it's like you're reading like 6 books in one. And
Yes.
especially I feel like this one more so than the other two is more like that. Like I feel like there's like a beginning, middle, and end, beginning, middle, and end, and now I'm starting a new beginning, middle, and end.
Right.
Like it like is really told like this could be 3 books. And
It definitely could.
I almost wonder why he doesn't just do that. I mean, wouldn't he make more money if he just released 3 books in a year
Right. Release
instead of
more, but
one?
or release. You write the whole thing and then you break it up and release them in
Yeah.
segments throughout the year. So break it
Right.
up into
Yeah. And then
there's
sell like a an ultra copy at the end of the year.
right.
That's like the whole thing. Um
Uh,
I don't know. But
yeah,
then it,
because there's according to this, there's 121 chapters plus the prologue and the epilogue, and
yeah.
I mean, and then like I said, you've still got in 121 chapters. Some of them are
Yeah.
15 or 20 minutes, but I would say most of them average 30 to 45
Yep.
ish minutes. And then you've got like the
There's
one that's coming up that's 2 hours long,
yeah.
followed by an hour long one. And it'll throw in hour long ones here and there.
Yeah.
And then the interludes and stuff like that aren't like little snippets for the most part. They're like some of them are, but then there's some that are 20, 30 minutes long. And you're just like, that's a
And
freaking huge.
in preparing for the show today, like I was trying to think back on everything that happened in this book, and so much has happened that I already feel I'm not even through the book yet, and I feel like I need to go back and read it again because
Read
like
it again.
so much has
Yes.
happened that I don't remember everything. Um, and like if you were to quiz me and you were to say like, hey, um, why does such and such if you were to quiz me, I think I would be able to come up with the answer. But if I just think and try to recap the book, like it's just too
Oh, no.
much for me
Yeah.
to put like in a plot line. Like it feels like I've been watching 7 seasons of a TV show. um
Definitely.
it's crazy, it's really
Well,
crazy.
you've got you've got the stuff that's currently happening, but then you also have all the Dalinar flashbacks
Yes.
that are
which
mixed in.
which I would say that's the through line of the book. Oathbringer, the through line of the whole thing is we find out. You already gave a spoiler warning, but spoiler. If I don't want any complaints that we spoiled Oathbringer. The through line of the book is finding out why Dalinar doesn't remember his wife's name or anything about her, but there's actually way more to the story about that. Um you see Dalinar's past and how different of a man he is in those moments
Right.
versus today. I mean, it's so interesting that like you're introduced to Dalinar as like this like noble, heroic, and just figure. I mean, everybody sees him as like this is the embodiment of like what it means to be like
A gallant knight.
right.
Like,
He's literally a white knight. Well,
yes.
he's a black his dark gray knight, but yeah, he is just the
He
epitome.
follows the way of kings.
Right.
Like,
I mean, like his character sheet, he would be like lawful good. Um,
Paladin.
but then we find out that his past character sheet was like chaotic,
Neutral,
neutral. I
maybe?
don't even know, like
Yeah, I don't
chaotic.
know. Yeah,
I mean, I
exactly.
think I
Or
think
just chaotic.
his I would say that the Blackthorn Dalinar, his belief, whether he was right or wrong, I think he believed that the ends would justify the means.
He was
That
Darth Vader
yeah, I mean,
and Thanos.
he was yeah, I mean
He
he was
was.
Thanos is probably a better yeah, he was probably a better example cuz he yeah, he did
He wanted to do something good, but the way he went about it was just by butchering everyone that didn't agree with him,
but
essentially.
then again, what was the good? I mean like I
Well, he
mean
wanted to. He want their whole thing. Him and Gavilar to unite all the kingdoms under one banner to
under
bring
under theirs,
under their
under
banner
their
because
banner. Yeah. I
exactly
mean, was
because
he a conqueror or was it to like
well
unite the
that's the whole
people?
thing. Like so the whole story where he goes to the reach or what is it called? Not the reach. Is it the reach? The place where he burns everything or the
No, the
rift
rift.
or
Yeah,
something like
the
that.
rift. It's called the rift.
Um, like you know, he is so he goes to the rift at one point and he just slaughters the guy, and you find out that that's how he gets his his shard blade Oathbringer is he kills the king, then he spares the son, but
Hmm.
which is kind of a
Oh, by the
is
way,
kind of off of him, but
that's in part one, and we probably talked about it in the last podcast episode. But I remember that moment. I told Becca, I said they just took my favorite character, and in one sentence, like I hate the guy now. Like they ruined this character for me, and that's before they revealed that he didn't kill him. So
right,
whenever they first told that story, they didn't reveal whether he had killed the son or not.
right,
And I like I said, I think of what I liked about Dalinar. What I liked about these books was Dalinar, and what I liked about Dalinar was that he was like this lawful good. He was fantasy Jean Luc Picard. You know what I mean? Like he was
definitely
like
yes,
lawful good, and he figured out ways to solve problems, and there was always like a third option that no one had thought of. Like he was
right,
I loved that character. And then whenever they hinted that he had killed the guy's son, I was like, too far, too far. Can't stand
yeah.
him. I don't want to believe that he was this
That
ruthless.
this is the same person,
Yeah.
yes.
And
Well,
then knowing what I know now is like that was the least of like that was he
right,
killed an entire city of people. Like that was
yes.
the least of our it's
And
crazy.
the thing is when he goes back to the Reach and to confront
The
the
rift.
son that he's the re yeah the I don't know where I'm getting the Reach. There's something there's some
It
show
sounds
or
good.
something where there's the
It
Reach.
sounds good.
Anyway, the Rift. Um, when he goes back and he has to confront the son that he spared, the
Yeah.
son basically makes those same arguments. He's like, "You're saying you're doing all this stuff as a noble thing and to unite people, but you're a tyrant."
Right. Yeah.
And like Dalinar can't accept that, like that he's a tyrant. He what he's doing, he truly believes
Yeah.
that the
I
bet like Saka City, you rape, murder, pillage, and everything, and
yeah.
that's where I get the Darth Vader and Empire thing. Rule by fear.
Mhm.
Um, and once once he does what he does and burns everybody and winds up killing his wife, he begins. That's when the questioning begins. Like I really am not a good person. Like
Yeah, I
I
think
am a tyrant.
one thing I saw this on the subreddit and I didn't read the whole post because I could tell that they were further in the book than I was at the time. Um but there was a post on the Stormlight Archive subreddit that said, "Was Gavilar abusing Dalinar? Like, what did he?" It reminds me of how on the TV show Luther, where he knows that serial killer woman, and he's like,
Right,
whenever the law won't take care of something, then I just give her the name and let her go do it. Like that's
right,
almost like what the Blackthorn was to Gavilar. Like
right,
Gavilar wanted to be seen as this like noble and just king, but he always knew that in his back pocket at any time he could just give Dalinar a name,
Right.
and was that abusive? Like, was he like convincing his brother that this was the right thing to do for the people, and he just knew that his brother was capable of doing it.
I think Gavilar too knew. No, I mean, like, not say he knew that. I mean, he does know the kind of person that Dalinar is, but
Yeah,
like, he would just send Dalinar out for long periods of years.
yeah, yeah. He's
His
gone.
wife shows up
Yeah,
and like, you've been gone for
for
like
like
all this
four
time,
years. Yeah,
and he's literally not been doing anything though. Gavilar just wanted Dalinar away from the kingdom
yeah. I
because he didn't want the Blackthorn there. He wanted to, he's trying to do the diplomacy thing more. And he was like, well, we'll just send Dalinar to some random kingdom and, make him do whatever, some menial killings or
yeah,
whatever, just to keep him busy, but keep him away from here where the more important thing is. And then all of a sudden, the whole thing at the Rift comes up, and then Gavilar's like, okay, well, we need to take care of this. So we're going to really unleash the Blackthorn at this point. So he's definitely like the ace up the sleeve type thing.
right.
Like if he needs something, he'll pull that out, but he doesn't want to be associated with him either at the
Yeah,
same time. It's,
he knows that he needs him, but he's keeping him at arm's length for like political reasons.
right.
Um, yeah, I thought that was an interesting take on it. Like I said, I didn't read the whole post because I was worried about spoilers, but I think after I finish Oathbringer, I might go back and read it. But
So I'm trying, like, things come up and I'm obviously don't remember where in the books they are and stuff, but like,
yeah,
so one of the things you've got is another interesting thing is the whole thing with Sadius and Adolin
yeah,
and his murder.
yeah. So where I'm at
And
in that whole plot line is he. Well, this is in part 5 though, so he tells Shalon that
he finally
yeah,
tells Shalon,
and Shalon's like, good, he was an asshole.
you're right.
Shalon's like,
Um,
but totally fits her character. Like,
yes,
she's done much worse that Adolin doesn't know about. So like,
right.
totally fits her reasoning that she would be like, oh yeah, yeah, that guy was an asshole. Good thing
A-
you did that.
And the crazy thing is that they once Sadius dies, so like he one of the things that Sanderson does is he doesn't like really explain things to you. It just happens in the story, and then you just kind of like pick up on it. So like Sadius wasn't Sadius's name. Sadius was like a title
I was confused by this. Yeah,
because
because
whenever the what's his name Amaram
Amaram. Yeah, I
comes
I
in, he became Sadius,
I'm
and I was
literally,
like,
yeah, I'm literally at that part right now where they're calling Amaram the new Sadius, and I was thinking the exact same thing. I was like, that's kind of insulting to Amaram, right? Like, he's
that's
not
what I
even his
was
own
like.
person. He's Sad, but yeah, is Sadius like a title? I don't
I think
know.
Sadius is a title. That's what I'm like.
Yeah,
I,
that
maybe it's particular
I
to that particular house or whatever
I just
that
read the
is.
exact same thing, and I was like, I don't know that I understand what they're trying to express here. Um,
But yeah, the whole thing when like because when you lay left off with Amram previously, like I thought he was in prison or whatever, and
yeah,
they had
yeah,
essentially Dalinar had banished him, and then all of a sudden,
that
Sadius's wife like is like, "Hey, here's the new
yeah.
leader of our house," and Amram walks in. You're just like, "Whoa!" Like,
That
that's kind
was
of crazy.
in Rhythms of War, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Words of Radiance. I get those two
Words
titles
of
mixed up.
Radiance. Yeah.
Yeah, in Words of
Um,
Radiance, they act like they lock him up, but then yeah, he's back out because I think basically in this book they were like, well, we just need every good leader we can get,
well, that's
and you
then
know,
Dalinar's put in this position like Sadius has essentially the biggest army out of everybody, and
Mm-hmm.
he needs them. Um, but obviously he can't trust them.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's kind of the whole. There's a whole underlying story there with like, what do they do with them? And I think they send Sadia. Well, it's like I said, now it's hard. Sadius Amaram. They send
Yeah.
him to what is it? What's that city? Is it Thalen City?
Thalen City. Yeah, he's so that's in part 5 where I'm at now where and I don't know how
They're
much you want to
helping
because
rebuild.
we're gonna do an episode
We're
on
gonna do a
part
whole
5.
thing,
So
but yeah, I mean, like, so there's the whole thing that happens in Thalen City, and they're just basically having to rebuild. There's like,
mm-hmm.
and that so like the one of Dalinar's thing in this is he's trying to recruit all the other families or whatever you want to call them,
Yeah,
kingdoms,
but
to his cause.
they all distrust him. This is a
They all
good.
distrust
It's
him.
this is a perfect like way to set up this book where we're learning about Dalinar's past, and even as a reader, we're learning who he used to be. I hesitate to say who he really is because I really think that who he is now is like he's not pretending to be that person. I think he became that after his brother died,
Right.
and I think we really get to see why and how he developed into the person he is
The,
today after Gavilar dies. But it's a perfect I don't know which one would be considered the A plot and which one would be considered the B plot, but it's a perfect companion plot
right.
because there it really shows you why all the other houses don't trust him. They think he's trying to
They
become some
know
sort
the
of emperor. Like they
well. They know the Blackthorn. They
right,
don't know
exactly.
Dalinar.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So that's why he's coming to them and trying to convince them to like join his like union.
This
Uh
noble cause to
right.
unite the people, and
But none
like,
of
hey,
them
I'm not gonna take over your city. I'm not gonna
yeah.
invade
It's the
your
wolf.
kingdoms.
It's the big
Right.
bad wolf going back to all the pigs and being like, "No, trust me. We should
Trust
start a
me.
real estate company together."
Right.
um, and so those two plots like really companion together really well. I didn't think about that till you started describing it, but um, yeah. So and then he figures out that he can um
Bring
bring
people
people
in.
into this visions that he has, and so
He's been
that's
having,
he
yes.
starts using that as his mechanism to be like, see, I wasn't crazy. If I'm crazy, you're crazy too, because you're seeing it too.
You're
You
seeing the
know?
same thing I'm seeing.
Yeah. And so he does that. He convinces some people. He starts building like a coalition. Man, so
And
much
the first
happens in this
people
book.
he gains is Thalen City, and then King.
Oh,
What's his
um,
name?
yeah,
Oh gosh.
the guy that is like smart sometimes and dumb sometimes.
Yes. Yes.
Um, oh man,
It starts with a T.
Taravangian.
Taravangian.
Yeah,
Yes.
Taravangian. I gotta pull up names so that we quit doing this. Um,
Which his character is extremely, extremely
I wanted to talk about him because
cool.
you are really into
Like,
him,
I like
and
him a lot, and I want to know more and more about what is it called,
the diagram.
the diagram. Yes.
Yeah. No.
Um,
So Taravangian, I don't understand. Like the chapters where Taravangian is talking to Dalinar and kind of being this mentor to him, it's not the same person as whenever you have a chapter where you're hearing Taravangian's internal monologue and
right.
it's like
Or when
his
he's with those
chapter.
people, he's
Yeah,
a totally different
it's
person.
completely different. And I realize that he's being manipulative. But even as a reader, I know this, and the moments where he's like being a mentor to Dalinar, I like him. And
Exactly.
I'm like, dude, he's so right about this situation. Like it doesn't seem like he's just trying it towards the end of part 4 you start seeing him manipulating Dalinar more, but all
Right.
the way up until that part I feel like he's being genuine. In all those scenes he seems like he's being genuine. I
And,
even get confused. I'm like, this is the same guy, right? Like this is the same
right.
guy.
I'm sure you've seen Princess Bride, right?
Yes, yeah.
So the old king.
Mhm. Oh yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
like, oh, she kissed me on. That's to me. That's Teravangian when he's
when
with
he's
Dalinar,
dumb.
like, oh yeah, like,
Oh
oh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you're such a good
So,
pat you on the hand, kind of
but
like,
but he has wisdom though.
but he has wisdom, yes.
he's like wise, but but he seems like he's just like an old man that is
And the
like
crazy,
it's
yeah, exactly.
yeah,
And but the crazy thing is when he's being Mr. Nice and mentoring King,
yeah,
he's still manipulating
yeah,
Dalinar.
yeah, yeah.
Like
Well,
it's such a he's such a well written character, and like I don't know
yeah.
what the last thing that has happened with him where you've
Where I left
been at.
off, where I so part 4 ends with um all the span reads start going nuts as a new storm is coming in, and they're not just informing about the storm, but they are also talking about how uh, Alucard swore emperorship to Dalinar just before he left to
Yeah,
go
yeah,
to
yeah.
and that like all the like the fears of these people it appears are like coming true, like they're starting to see, and I imagine Teravangian is behind the release of that information. I don't They haven't actually revealed that, but that's kind of what's implied. It's kind of my assumption. um and Teravangian is like he's like talking to like his like henchmen or whatever that he hangs out with, and he's like saying like, I really like Dalinar. He's a good guy. Shame we're gonna have to kill him. Yeah,
We're gonna have to kill him. Yeah, exactly.
yeah. And so he's
But I
like
mean, like,
he's working out his plot. Like his plans are like kind of coming to fruition now.
yeah, and like, so like what the diagram is essentially telling them is
So
that they can't win in a
I'm
battle
I'm
against
confused by
what's
it.
his name.
Yeah, I'm confused by it. Like, so there's been a lot of discussion about the diagram. I've heard a lot of pieces read at the beginning of chapters. Um, and you probably know more than I do because of reading to the end of the book, but also I know that you are better at understanding those chapters than I am. I don't know that I understand all of the prophecies and stuff that are from the diagram, because to me it's hard to know when something seems like a real prophecy and whenever it's just ramblings from
Well,
Teravangian.
the one weird thing is that the diagram is there, and it's basically like a reading a tea leaves or future thing, or like a
Yeah.
glass ball kind of thing. And but it's also not 100% written in stone because different things
Mm.
have because they've had to change, and they'll interpret it differently, which I've noticed. Like the Charavangians, one of his henchmen, there's the woman and there's the other dude, and they're kind of like the
Yeah.
two people that kind of like go through the diagram. And they'll be like, earlier they're like, they were trying to assassinate Dalinar
Yeah.
because the diagram said, hey, you have to assassinate Dalinar to make all these things happen.
Right.
And then they didn't, and then Teravangian realizes, hey, no, we don't need to assassinate Dalinar. We have to keep Dalinar alive, like, to make all
Oh,
this stuff
I don't think
happen.
I've hit that yet. So that must be in
Um,
part 5 because I don't think
uh,
I've hit that yet.
um,
Where
but
I'm
the
at,
whole
they're still trying to. I believe they're trying to kill him. They're either trying to kill him or they're trying to
well,
get
they're
him
trying to kill
out
him
of the picture.
now,
Yeah.
starting in part 5, because that's what, like, so when they tried to assassinate him, I don't know if it was in this book. I think it was in the previous book where they tried to assassinate Dalinar.
Well, they sent the
Um,
assassin in white after him in like Way of Kings or at the beginning of the next book.
right, right, and he's not successful, and that's when they realize Teravania realizes, hey, we can't. I was wrong. For this stuff to
Oh,
happen, we need to keep him alive. And
okay.
now they're getting to the point where, because his basically was like, we keep him alive, and then he fails, and then I can step in.
Oh,
And
okay.
um, but essentially, what they're saying, the diagram is a telling is that what's the big bad god, um,
Odium.
Odium, that they can't there's no way to defeat Odium. They'll never defeat Odium. So the only way for humans to survive is if you can't beat them, join them,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
He kind
And
of
so that's where they're going toward. Dalinar wants to fight Odium and destroy him and save mankind.
yeah.
Taravangian, because of the diagram, wants to defeat Dalinar
Yeah.
and
He
become subservient to Odium and hopefully spare mankind. Um,
he reminds me of a
and
character like this the Cancer Man in
right
the
in
X
X
Files.
Files,
Yeah, where it's
yes,
like he is pragmatic enough to understand that he has to help the enemy, but also there's a part of him that would be if there was a chance that the humans could win in the end,
right.
he would step in and join that side. He's just pragmatic about it, and I almost feel like that's like where Taravangian
Well,
might
I
be.
think there was parts of this where he started to believe
Yeah.
in Dalinar too,
Hmm.
and then when you get to the end of part four, I think his he changes again to realize is that the Odium is like this
Just
omnipotent power, and there's no way that you can defeat Odium.
I mean, honestly, I'm kind of feeling that way too. I mean, I think it's the beginning of chapter 5 where they have the chapter where Odium shows up in one of Dalinar's visions because Dalinar
Yeah.
tries to bring in uh, Valen. We discussed this before the show and figured out her name, and now I can't remember.
Now
Um,
you think about when he brings in. Well, there's the one where he brings in, uh, yeah, Valen or whatever, and then there's the one where he brings the kid, the leader,
oh yeah,
the new leader of that, and with Lift,
yeah, right.
and then he's talking to Odium, and Lift is there. I don't know if you caught on to that, where Odium gets nervous, and he's like kind of not scared, but he was like, "This is strange. I don't know what this is." And then he flees, and then Lift comes out from behind that rock, and that's what he was sensing because he I think he says something like, "I haven't felt this sensation in
Huh,
however long," or something like that, and it was all because Lift was spying on
huh.
them, and he felt her presence, and it worried him, and I was like, that's kind of interesting.
No, I didn't catch that. Are you sure that's not in part 5?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure because it's the
I
very first time that he takes the kid into the vision,
I remember a chapter where he talks to
and then
the
she's there, and she comes and she's like,
huh.
she calls him like she says something about he's got a small butt or something like that, and like being her silly character or whatever. Um, and then that's when Odium shows up. I think it's even the first time he talks to Odium in a vision,
Yeah. I
and
have to go
because they're
back and
sitting
read
on
that
the
chapter.
they're sitting on that rock outside of that wherever they are by the beach, and she's hiding back there,
Hmm.
listening to it, and she pops out and she's like, "Who is that weird guy?" and all this stuff, and like, but Odium. It's kind of like one of those offhand comments. He's like, what was that? That's a strange. I haven't.
Yeah, I remember that chapter I think, but I definitely missed that part. Um
Um,
but so I'm trying to think of we keep diving into chapter into part 5, which I can't wait to get through that and then we do a whole episode on that. I feel like I am through all of Dalinar's story and I thought it was really good and I really think he's an extremely compelling character. The other characters that had character, every character has some sort of character development in these books. Um, I guess Shalon is kind of the next most interesting one to me because
right.
she, you know, she is
He's gotten
definitely
better each book.
yeah.
To me,
Oh yeah,
she annoyed me in the first book.
me
She
too.
got better in the second
Yeah.
book, and now I really like her in
I
this book.
agree. Yeah. To me, in the first book, she seemed so fake. Like it just didn't seem like I was reading a real character.
Right.
And and at the time, I just thought, well, Brandon Sanderson is probably just not as good at writing women. But we were both like, but Yasna's cool, and like like why is this character different? And then in the next book you find out that, well, she is kind of being fake. She is intentionally hiding, or like smothering this part of her personality like way deep down, because she's scared to face it. And so it wasn't that he was unable to write that type of character. He was brilliantly writing it, like in a way that this character's internal monologue probably truly was. And this book has been showing how, like, she's been using this power to not just cloak herself, or veil herself rather,
Right.
but she's actually like, she has these different characters living within her mind. And I'm wondering, is this is this her putting on different personalities to deal with different situations, or is this part of her like power where she's actually creating other characters?
Well,
um
I think we talked about this previously. She is a lot like Odetta and Detta
yeah,
in the Dark Tower. I think when she is Lift, she is Lift. There, Shalon is not
yeah.
there. And the same thing with, oh God, what's the other character's name? The
Veil. Oh wait,
there's
no, she's
Veil.
not Lift. Lift is
I mean, yeah, when she's Veil, she's Veil. When
yeah.
she's the other
The
one that trains with, um,
the she has a term for her. I can't remember now.
yes,
I want to say
um,
Radiant, but it's not Radiant. Um,
but like she is definitely like it's like split personality.
yeah, but
She knows that they're there, as like unlike Detta no Detta, but
mhm.
like Vale loves
Yeah,
doesn't love Aelin.
Vale
She
is
loves
interested in Kaladin,
in
and
Kaladin.
Shallan is but see, here's the thing. Shallan is interested in Kaladin because Shallan showed a little bit, like a spark of that in the second book in the chasms, in
Right.
all those chasm scenes, and that was before Veil, right? Like that was before she started
That
wearing Veil.
was that was yes.
If it wasn't, I'm pretty sure it was before, but even if it wasn't before, she wasn't Veil in those scenes. She was Shallan. Um, so I mean, I think that it's still a mechanism for her to deal with things. I think she's doing it, and I don't think
So
it's. But there was the scene in
wasn't say there's a scene in Thalen or not? Is it not Thalen City?
Kolinar whenever
In
they're trying to
Kolinar
steal the
when they're
food.
fighting
Oh,
and stuff. Yes.
well, I was thinking about whenever they were stealing the food in Kolinar, and she is acting like the matron lady. So she cloaks herself to look like the matron lady that is like the head woman of this particular house that they're planning on. They're pretending like they're
Right.
rug makers, and they're making rugs they're trying to replicate some rug that was messed up, and they're really there to steal food. Well, she starts thinking like that woman in those scenes, and
Right.
it seems uncontrollable. It seems like she's not intentionally doing it. And so I think that there could be like a magical aspect to this. Like it's not just her trying to hide uh her past and trying to hide the deepest part of herself or deal with social situations by jumping into these different personalities. I think there could be an element of like whenever she takes over the personality of another character, that she like literally does that. I mean,
Right.
or it also could be that, like, if you were somebody that was like Shallan was before she had this power, where she did kind of bottle things up and ignore different aspects that she didn't want to deal with, and then you're given a superpower where you can literally become other people. You, even if it wasn't necessarily like, you would use that to your advantage. Um, you would use that to, you're already emotionally bottling things up and hiding things from other people and putting on a different face in front of different people, and then now you have a superpower where you can literally do that. You would do that, you know what I mean? Like you would use that ability in
Right.
that way.
So
um
here's an interesting thing. I was
that's
reading
crazy interesting.
um I'm on like Sean's character thing on the Stormlight Archive wiki,
Yeah.
and it says where is it? Brandon Sanderson has said that both Shalon and Vale are bisexual.
Hmm. I
I
could
didn't get
see.
that at all.
I totally picked up on that. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, with Shalon for sure. I thought that Shalon was going to be interested in Yasna
Well,
because
see, the only time, well, I maybe a little with Shalom with Yasna, but the
I
only time maybe that came up was the lady that she was um, riding to the Shattered Plains with, and the when she
oh yeah, her too. Yeah,
gets
yeah.
in that wagon or whatever.
Oh
That's the only
man,
time I kind of thought
that
about that.
that feels
But
like
like,
three
yeah,
years
that just
ago. I
kind of,
read
I
that.
know, right?
That was just a couple months ago.
I,
Yeah, I know. I forgot about that. No, I totally picked up on it, but I thought it was just me reading into it. But since Brandon Sanderson says that, I think I
yeah, I
probably was
mean
right.
that's.
And yeah, I read into that a little bit with Shalon.
But one of the things too is that like with each book, and then especially toward the end of the last book, and almost every section that she's in this book, she is gaining more and more power. Like she's becoming like like I said,
Strong.
her abilities are doubling like
You know what's
fairly
funny?
quickly.
She in a part that I was reading recently, she mentions that she quit trying the whole I forgot. In the first book, they talked a lot about how Yasna could what do they call that where they could like turn stone into
Soul cast,
soul cast.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah. She
so
stopped soul
she
casting, and
stopped
she's just
soul
using her.
casting. Yeah, and I was thinking, do you think Brandon Sanderson just not that he forgot, but he was like, oh, this is way more interesting. I'm going to write more about this thing. And then later on, he was like, we've been a whole damn book and she hasn't soul cast
She
anything.
hasn't soul cast
And that was like
anything,
the whole purpose of the first couple chapters that she was in. Maybe we
right?
need to touch back on that. And so he came up with this whole reason why she's like intentionally not soul casting. I was just thinking it's awfully convenient.
Right.
It could have been just a really convenient writing tool there. I don't know if that was really on purpose or not. Um, but yeah, that I had like completely forgotten about the whole soul casting thing.
I actually I did too until it
Yeah,
popped up again in that book, and I was like,
yeah.
oh yeah, that's right. She did the whole blood thing and
Just
all
turn a
that
boat
stuff,
into
and
water and all that stuff.
turned a boat in the water,
Yeah.
um, and my like when she so when they're in Kolinar
hmm
and
Which we need to talk
all the
about that.
crazy,
We need to talk about that plot line because that's really the chunk of this book. The probably the
right?
biggest plot chunk of this book is the taking over Kolinar. Um, and
So they haven't. The big thing is that the span read things is where they can communicate between everybody.
yeah,
They're getting no information from Kolinar. They're getting information from all the other kingdoms and wherever there's spanneries, but there's nothing coming out of Kolinar. So essentially, they're like, well, we have we need to find out what's going on there. Why are we not getting information?
right.
What's happening? And so they essentially they form a coalition that was going to be like Gavilar, not Gavilar. Is it
Definitely not Gavilar. Alakar.
um,
Alakar.
Alakar,
Excuse me.
Alakar,
Alakar,
and Kaladin,
Kaladin, and
and
like
then
a
it was going to be
small
some of the
team.
bridgemen,
Yeah.
and then like um,
They end up taking
Shalon decides that she needs to get away
uh
from all this stuff that's going on. So, and she wants to get away from Yasna because she feels that Yasna is like,
I forgot about that. Yeah.
like being
Yasna,
overbearing, and she's treating her like
her
a
ward.
kid instead of like now that she's this all powerful,
That was an interesting part though. So like when Yasna disappeared, um Shalon was like this like plucky, like kind of
meek
ignorant kid.
little,
Yeah.
yeah. And then she
And
came into her own.
yeah, she came back and she's like a knight's radiant, and like the essentially the whole world is like looking to her to like save the planet. But Yasna, being the character that she is, she's like, oh, but you're
But
still my assistant. Yeah,
you're still my ward.
go get me some
You go get me
coffee. It comes
exactly. Go get me some coffee, and hey, you need to take notes at this meeting.
right. Yeah. Which that was interesting.
So
Um,
like she comes up with the whole plan to manipulate Alakar in a saying, "Hey, you need to be here," because she's like, I can change everybody, and we can sneak into the city, and
Yeah.
and no one will know who we are, and I mean, it does make sense. I
Yeah.
mean,
And it turned out to
and
be
it
really
worked.
useful.
As I
Yeah.
say, it
Yeah.
worked. So yeah, they wound up, and then they wound up taking Adolin too. So it's like it's Alakar, Kaladin, Shallan, um, and then a couple, two or three bridgemen,
I
and
can't even
then
remember who else went with them from the
yeah, I
Bridge
think
crew, but
it was only like six
they
or
really
so of
focus
them
on those characters. They
on those
really,
characters,
yeah.
and so they go into the city and stuff and they find out that the Parshmen they haven't taken over the city, but they've basically surrounded the city, and there's these
It's
type
like
of spren that are bad spren,
right,
and that's
Void
what's
Spren.
blocking. Like if someone tries to use magic,
Yeah.
like a span read or anything like that, these screaming spren come in and like basically shine a light on the person, and so the what are the flying parshmen called? Like
The fused.
the fuse come in and like kill them. So
Yeah.
they find out pretty early that, hey,
And
we're isolated now. We can't communicate either, because if we try to communicate, then we're going to be found out.
and there are like there's like a cult that of
Dress up like Spren.
townspeople that worship these Void Spren. They dress up like Spren. They're doing all this, and this yeah, it's amazing. I feel so far removed from this section of the book, and it's like a huge chunk of the book.
Oh, it is.
And I only just finished reading it. It just picks right back up, and so it's like you feel like you're in like that feels like a different book.
Yes,
Um, but it was great though. Like that whole plot was so good once it got going. It did feel like it kind of lingered there for a while, where like
it did a little
why are they
bit.
throwing a party? Like they was some weird stuff in there, but like once it really kicked off and you figured out what was going on, it was really good. But like this,
When we're talking about this whole giant book, you could have one book about Dalinar's past, one
yeah,
book about what's happening with Dalinar now, and a book about this
yeah.
group that's in
I,
doing their thing.
he knows what
Like,
he's
I mean,
doing.
it's literally three different books.
Yeah, yeah. At least it's at least three different books. Um, but so I loved whenever that story like really kicked into high gear, and they're actually seeing what's inside the castle. And there was like the black heart. Um,
The
and
Oath Gate thing that's got the
yeah, and
whatever it is draped over it with tentacles or whatever, and
yeah, that was so like Cthulian. Like it
right, it was like
was
that's
so
what I thought too. I was
crazy.
like, oh, Cthulhu,
Um,
and then like Shallan breaks in. Well, that didn't really break in. She makes it seem like she's a messenger that she needs to give the
yeah,
queen
like
something,
three or
and then
four different times in that plot line, Shalon just decides like she's just gonna like basically kill herself to get out of the situation, and then allow
right,
Stormlight to heal her. Um,
right,
like there's
which
the
is
there,
crazy too.
yeah, I know it's crazy, and like I don't know why Kaladin or like nobody else has thought of it this way. Shalon is just like I'll just take the damage and then I'll
Right,
get healed back up
I'll
and
get healed.
yeah. But she like throws herself off the balcony. Like there's the scene where she's being guided through the castle and she sees all the like debauchery and like the people that are like mindlessly like stuck in these like sexual and like just gluttonous like they've
Right,
been like eating the same food for like years now or however long the castle's been taken
you know,
over
one of the things that's crazy about that is the way he describes it. It's like this big, like,
with the rings.
all these people. It's a big ring, and
Yeah.
like the closer you get to the center of the ring, the crazier
Yeah.
the debauchery and all that stuff gets. So the people on the outside are just like,
Yeah.
doing whatever, maybe drinking or something like that. But the people on
That
the
stuff
inside
is
are like
so
naked,
wild.
covered in mud, like
Yeah.
orgies, like
And the time also is like slowing down the closer you get, because
Right.
whenever they actually do storm the castle and they're trying to retake the castle, they find those soldiers that have been locked away because they refuse to go along with things, and
Right.
they haven't eaten. Like, they feel like they've only been there for like a couple days,
Right.
and they're not tired. They're willing to fight. Like, they don't look like they're like slim or anything like that. Um, and then in the room where they actually finally get to the queen, and like in that room, there's like food on the table. Like, it's like time is not passing for some reason.
Right.
Um, all that stuff was so good, so like Cthulhu esque. Like, it felt in place in this world, but yet so unique from all the other stuff we had previously read. Like, it
Right.
fit so well, but was just so different. I
You
really
know,
loved that part of the book. It was really
that was a
it was really
yes. And
wild.
then like you know,
And the
so
Queen's Guard,
essentially,
the
yes,
the Queen's Guard are all like dead. Like, I feel like they were
they're all
animated
dead.
corpses. Yeah.
Yes, they were. They're zombies
They
essentially.
yeah, they're like not grunt, like they're barely making any noise in combat and stuff. I mean,
So earlier you have the part where Shalon chases the shadow thing in
yeah.
in
Yeah.
the
That's in book 1. You talking about
yeah
in the tower, the
in the tower, and like she
yeah.
makes and, she takes the glove off and touches that thing, and
Yes.
that was one of those, one of the, what are they, nine, um
The not the unmaids, or they're called
it is the
unmaids.
unmaids, isn't
Okay.
it?
I
And so like
I think so.
what happens is when she gets to um Kolinar, and she sees this Cthulhu thing, she realizes that it's another
Yeah.
one of the unmade.
Right.
And it's basically its tentacles are reaching out and controlling everything. And
Mhm.
um, she also realizes that the queen is like completely under this thing's control.
Yeah.
And and I don't think that the queen necessarily was against that either, because she seemed like she was kind of a bitch
She
to
definitely
begin
seemed,
with.
yeah, I mean, she definitely seemed mindless.
Yes,
So it's
she
hard to
and
say,
like,
but I
well,
know what you mean. I mean, she seemed like it probably didn't put up much of a fight.
they kept alluding with Aladar talking about her that she was not necessarily the best of people,
Mm.
but he cared about his kid, like, but she was kind of, like she was the typical like red queen. She was, let him
Yeah.
eat cake kind of thing, and they're subjects. They're not, they're not my people. They're my subjects kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that that was the type of person, obviously, that this unmade wanted
Yeah.
and got. And then so she realizes that there's no there's no helping. Like she gets to this place and she's like, this was kind of an all for nothing thing. I mean, she finds out a lot of information, but the ultimate goal that Aladar wanted was, to get in there and save her.
Yeah.
And
Alucard. Yeah.
Alakar, and she realizes that she's not necessarily savable.
Yeah.
Um,
That that moment, it feels like that whole scene felt like Ice Crown Citadel in World of Warcraft. Like, it that I could see that being like the ultimate climax of some like huge raid in an MMO, where you finally get to the queen's room and you see that she's been taken over by this demonic possession. And I love where Kaladin basically, like, whenever he figures out what's going on, he's like, Alakar, save the one you can save, like talking about saving
right.
his son. Like, just let's just give up on this queen,
Just give up on yeah,
and let's snatch up the kid and escape. And then Kaladin's story really comes to a head in this moment too, because in order to get out of the castle, he has to fight the slaves of the Parshendi that he traveled with
He
before.
traveled with.
And
Right.
it's like in that room, other than the Queen's Guard, which arguably the Queen's Guard were at one time good people. They're just
Good
all
people.
they're dead,
Exactly.
reanimated now. But in that room, it's all people that you have
That
some
he cares
reason.
about.
Yeah, you have some reason to care about all of these people, and they're all killing each other.
And
And
basically he loses it. Like
yeah, he's just like, what do
he
I
shuts
do?
down. Like
Yeah, what do I do in
he
this
doesn't know
moment?
what to do. Yeah, he doesn't know what to do.
And that's because Kaladin is not like he's not like Adolin, where he doesn't like take orders. He does what he thinks is the right. He
Right.
happens to be on the side of Dalinar because he believes that's the right thing to do. But like in a moment like this where he can't clearly see what is right and wrong, it's hard for him to get the motivation to just
Well, he
follow
knows
orders and
that
just do that.
those parshmen aren't there
Yeah,
as an enemy. They're there as it's either do this or you die. So they're
mm-hmm.
going to do this because they literally have no choice.
Right.
And once he's confronted that, like, how do I kill someone who is only doing something because there is no other option than to do that? How can I kill this person? Um, and basically he just screams and
Yeah.
falls to his
And
knees and
then
all this stuff.
the
Then
the payoff of which I'm surprised his name has not come up again yet in what I've read of part 5, but I'm sure it will. Um, Moash appears
Flash shows up,
out of the crowd and kills Alucard, and then the
right?
Queen's Guard scoops up the kid and takes him back to the
And takes
throne
off.
room, or back to it wasn't really a throne room, but back to her like
Yeah, to
her
the whatever it
bedroom
was.
suite or
Yes,
whatever it was. Um, and so like this whole fight was for naught. I mean,
right.
they succeeded in nothing they set out
And
to do.
nothing. They failed in
And
more ways than they succeeded.
this was another moment that I was like telling my wife about after I read it because I was so excited about it. I've been telling her I'm like I can't wait for this to be a TV show because we're gonna watch it together and like I'm gonna
Right.
ruin everything. Um, but like they're in a moment where they're at the Oath Gate and they basically know it's a trap. They know that they shouldn't do this, but if they don't do it, they're gonna die at the hand of the Queen's
Right.
Guard. There's no escaping.
There's no escape.
And
Right.
so basically their situation is like, Shallan tells Adolin like, "Hey, we shouldn't unlock it. Like this is a trap." And Adolin's like, "Yeah, but we're dead anyway. Like just like that we if we stay here, we surely die. If we fall into the trap, there's a chance we live. So like let's just fall into the trap."
Right.
And that kicks that's basically the end of part 4 and what
So
kicks off part 5.
going back a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
so when Shallan realizes previously that things are not what they thought were in the castle and the gate and all that stuff, she's all like down in the dumps and she's walking through the city and she sees a street performer
Oh yeah, the
and she's watching him and then she realizes that it's Wit.
oh
And
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like,
I forgot about Wit being
I was
there.
like, oh my god, it's Wit, because like
Yeah.
you didn't know what was,
Mm-hmm.
and then like so, and you still don't necessarily know what he is,
No.
but Wit is timeless,
Yeah.
and
I think Wit.
he's all powerful, and he's like this, but he's gotten. It's one of those things where he's immortal and he's been around for I think he said since before men were even there,
I
and
think
now he's just
he.
bored and
I think he's from like the Cosmere. Like I think he knows all of
right,
Sanderson's universe.
he knows everything, he is everything kind of thing, but
Yeah.
he's gotten to the point where he's just been around for so long he's just like um none of this matters to me anymore, like
Yeah.
and like because she's like because I mean I think she even's like well, you can step in and do something, and he's just like not really, and he kind of gives her some pointers and stuff, but like
I think he is. I think he is because he does help her get into the
then he
castle.
I was just saying then he
Yeah.
starts coming around, he comes around more and more because he shows up again later,
Yeah.
and and maybe like I think that's another thing that Shalon has is like I think he likes her
To me, he's
and he's
like
intrigued by
he's
her.
almost like the Doctor in this universe, like from Doctor Who. Like
Right.
I think that he is trying to influence things without actually taking action. Like he's trying to influence things, but he has to allow the humans to
To
take the
do
action.
it on their own, right.
Right? Yeah. Um, and maybe
He's not
there's
quite a watcher, but
right. Yeah, he's like a step.
he's
He's like a
more
little bit
involved than a
more
watcher, but
involved than
yeah.
a watcher. Yeah, but not by a lot. He can only kind of like nudge things, but then they have to
Right.
run their course. You know. Yeah, he's a really cool character. I
He's
hated
a
his
cool
guts
character.
in the first book. He
Right?
was so annoying, but the more he's like become this like mysterious, kind of just he's just always where, and he even says like he's always where he needs to be, and doesn't
Right.
quite know how he got there, and this I'm liking that version of Wit.
Right.
Um, than him just being like the chucklehead that always just makes fun of everybody at the parties, at the dinner parties.
Right. Well,
Um,
then so like, he does kind of help them get in to
mm-hmm,
the gate and everything. But the other interesting thing is that when they get there, um, you know, they're trying to decide about, how are they going to open the gate? There's these diffused that are like hanging around and stuff like that. And then like she interacts with the unmade.
mm-hmm.
Um, and I forgot what this unmade's name was, but it's like this female.
With the white
And
eyes.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
like she tells basically Shalon that, hey, this isn't necessarily something I want to be doing either. Uh, I'm my hand is kind of forced in this, but the gate is not safe.
Yeah.
Like if you use the gate, you're thinking you're going to open the gate and you're going to go back to, you know, well, I forgot what that city is. The
Urithiru.
year theory, yeah.
I forgot
And
it earlier. We both avoided it in earlier, but
I
I
know,
just
right?
remembered
I thought I was going to say the other day. Um, but and so that's Shalon's like, hey, we probably shouldn't use this gate. And then they get to the point where, they're all these parshmen and fused and the crazy people and like all these people are just basically closing in on them. And it's
yeah.
like, you don't have a choice. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
have to do something.
And
And so they do. They
it's
turn the gate on.
she makes a comment like, you know, I'll try my best not to hurt you. I'll try my best not to kill you.
Right. And
and
so one of the other things is then you also kind of infer is like, so there's all these unmade, and the ones you've seen are like the one that that grants Dalinar his wish is not a nice
well,
thing.
that
It's
was
evil.
so that actually was I'm pretty sure that was cultivation.
That is cultivation, yes.
Right. Yeah. So like
Because the he goes there, and the first one he sees is,
the one that
I
everybody
guess,
talks
one
about.
of the
I can't remember
unmade,
her.
and then
Yeah.
the mother is cultivation.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
um, but like, so, and then the one that she fought in Urithiru, and then like, so this one is an unmade, but maybe not necessarily all that bad.
Hmm.
So, and there's more, um, and which they haven't really mentioned any of the other ones other than the ones we've met so far.
The Midnight
And
Mother was the name of the
the
one
Midnight
at
Mother,
the
yes.
center of Urithiru. Um.
So like, essentially, she's like, yeah, I'll do. I don't really have much control, but I'll do whatever I can. And then they do the gate, and they wound up in, what's the other land called now?
Um.
Um, the
By
Spren
the way,
Kingdom.
I wanted to. We'll just have to talk about this in the part 5 episode. But I got so many questions about that place. and I
The
wanted to
friend
talk.
place.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that, but Shadesmar is what it's called.
Shadesmar, yes.
You got to just give me a minute for it to come to me, but it'll eventually
Yeah, I
get
know,
there.
right?
There's a lot. Dude, these books are so dense. Like, there's a lot to learn in every. You know, you have to hear it a dozen times before it really sticks.
So
Um,
it's like, with the thing I got out of Shadesmar is it's basically ev-
I thought whenever they first introduce it in the second book in the prologue where Yasna like goes
goes
into
there, yeah.
Shadesmar, I thought it was gonna be a bigger part of the story, but it really is only like kind of like touched on. I mean, Shallan falls into it the first time she surge binds, and then Yasna uses it to escape. But it really doesn't come up like a whole lot. And then we're just like the characters just in part five, they're just dropped into it, and like they're like
How much
we're
have
deep
you
in it now.
how much have they done in Shadesmar in part five?
So I've read all the way through. They a lot happened. A lot has happened.
The one
They go all the way back to like at the part I'm at. They have like they chartered a boat. They took the boat to they where they Thalen City should be, and
right
they are now seeing the armies of
of
Voidspren
Parshman and
and
Voidspren and
yeah,
all
are
that
all
stuff.
going into the other
Okay.
world. Yeah, that's where I'm at now.
So
That
like my idea of Shadesmar when when Shalon and Yasna had gone there, my thought with Shadesmar is basically like I wouldn't say hell, but like
hmm,
not an underworld necessarily, but kind of that like it was just kind of like this void where all these because I think of Spren as like like these spirit type things and like but
so
then when they start going there there's like cities and people and
yeah,
ships
it's like a
and
whole
like
nother world there.
they go
Yeah,
into like this city and there's markets and all this and
yeah,
I'm like why do
yeah,
spirits have markets and all this stuff and like so it was totally that was not what I expected at all for what
yeah,
Shadesmar is. And then the thing is like what's land in the real world is water or beads
yeah.
in
But
Shadesmar, and
it
what's
didn't seem to work that way in the prologue. Whenever Yasna goes there, I can't remember if that's this book or if that's the previous book, but
right.
it
Yeah, so
it
I
seems
don't
like
know
it's
because
changed a little bit since they introduced it originally.
um,
Um,
and maybe it just kind of evolved into what he wanted because
right.
they didn't
I
really
think that's what
describe
it
it very
is.
much,
Yeah, yeah. I
but
think that's what it is. He left it vague in the beginning because I don't think he knew yet.
and then the
Um,
beads turn out to be like because you find out like the fabrils that everybody uses and the soul caster things and all those things it's basically in those little beads are spren that just haven't hatched essentially or
yeah,
whatever
but it's like the
and
soul. It's like the soul of people, but also like the soul of like objects. Like this
of
bead
objects like
represents
a
the soul
stick.
of a coffee mug. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
exactly. And like
it,
um
but also
it
like an entire building. Like Shalon, we got to get into this in the part five. But like Shalon, like she uses a bead of
when they try to escape.
yeah, she uses a bead of an entire building as like a boat or a bridge or something. And it's like, okay, but hold
It,
on. Shouldn't there be a soul for each brick that made the building, not one for the whole building? What of the objects inside the building were they all in that same little bead, or is there a
right?
bead for all of those things?
All those things. Yeah,
This doesn't.
that
It
part
doesn't.
was like
It's not. Like the details of that are not necessarily important to hold up the story and explain all
right.
that. But at the same time, I don't think it should work like. I think there should be a bead for like each part that
Each
makes
yeah,
up the
right. Like
whole.
if she's gonna make a building, she needs
She's all the little
5,000
bricks.
brick spread.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me.
And so like, yeah, I mean like that the, the Shazemar, maybe he'll get more into the lore of Shazemar, but then you find out that the Kaladin Spren uh
Seal.
Seal, again, the names. Seal is like this Spren that is one of the most
Yeah.
important spren there is,
Let's
essentially.
let's definitely save this for the next episode
Okay,
though,
we'll
because
do
yeah,
that. Yeah, because
because
there's still a lot more.
that stuff. And here's the thing: I don't remember, was that part 4 or was that part 5? I feel like I've
I
only
don't
read a
know.
few chapters of part 5, but yeah, all that stuff was in there.
Yeah, I mean, I
I've
think
probably
that was
read. I've
because
probably
the
read more
part
than I think. Oh, you know what it is?
where they hire where they get on that boat
It's part
after they
3. It's part 3. 3 ends with the battle on Kolinar, and then 4 picks up there in Shadesmar. So yeah, no, you're right. All of this is part 4, but I still want to
yeah,
save it for the next podcast. I
right.
just basically everywhere I said 4 in the previous, I really meant 3. I Cause see that's the dude. I totally forgot that was 2 different parts. This book,
Yeah, I mean,
this
like I
book
said,
is
it's
so long.
all
It's
like
so
it's so
dense.
big. Like
Yeah, it's so
I'm
crazy.
stuff's popping in my head, and I'm like, I have no idea where this came from. It's in that gigantic book somewhere.
Right.
Um,
Well, I'll definitely finish up pretty quickly because I've been I really like the part I'm at, and I've been consuming it really fast. So
well,
the
I mean,
next episode we can kind of do a sort of like an end of the book and do kind of a review. Although I doubt we're not going to be like, yeah, suck, hate
no.
it, never reading another
So
Brandon Sanderson book ever again.
I feel like I've been like putting part five up on this giant pedestal, but it
Yeah,
really is like
where I'm at is really good. I can tell, like I
when it
can
gets
tell.
into it,
Yeah,
like because I mean, obviously, there's the Thalen City
yeah,
war or whatever, it's coming,
yeah.
and so like, dude, I mean,
I
just
I don't think
it
you've
is
overhyped
so
it.
good.
Like I don't know if you're
Like,
worried that you've overhyped it to me, but I don't think you have. Like I can tell where I'm at, what I'm in for, and I don't feel like you've overhyped it. I think I'm going to be
and
very.
the crazy thing is that like I said, all the previous books and then parts one through four are essentially all leading up to this one part of this
Mm,
book.
yeah,
Like this is, and even when it's done, and I mean, you may have the same thing. I'm like, okay, where do we go from here? I mean, there's obviously things that
I
are left
felt that way.
open, but
I
like,
I felt that way at the end of the last book, though. At the end of
right,
book two,
exactly,
I was like, all the main characters are essentially gods now. So like,
right,
what happens next? You know. but
and
but they've done a really good job of putting them in situations where that's not really useful, or introducing characters like Odium where we really see that he is way bigger and more powerful than we thought. Like
you thought, yes,
yeah, like these
and,
guys,
and the
they're ants to
Stormfather
him.
is not as powerful
Yeah.
as you thought either. And so one we all need to get on the next episode because we didn't even mention is Seth.
Oh yeah,
Like
Zeth. We didn't even really talk about. Now he picks up a lot in. I feel like that. I don't know if it's
in
the end of part 4 or if it's
part
the
four,
part 5 that blends together to me. But yeah, we learn like what he's doing now, and he's becoming a skybreaker.
and he's
And he's talking with to
training with what's his
Nell,
name?
but he,
Nell,
but
yes.
where I'm at, he just joined him, and I've only had like one chapter where he's been with
Okay.
Nell. But before
Okay.
that, he was with these like this like sect of people that were like training people to be
Well,
skybreakers.
Nell is like the leader of that sect.
Right.
So like
Yeah.
he's training to be a skybreaker, but Nell is essentially the
Yeah.
head skybreaker.
I see. I don't think that I would have appreciated. I can see why Edge Dancer exists because, I mean, Nail. Uh, yeah. It's hard to without knowing the darkness. It's hard to know that gives you a lot of perspective on that character. It makes these moments in
Right.
the book seem. I can't imagine what it would feel like if I had not read Edge Dancer,
Right,
um,
exactly.
like because we've only heard glimpses of his name, and he shows up at the end of the second book, or is it the end of the first book? He shows up at the end of one of the books. It's the second book,
Right.
end of the second book. But like, but yeah, but he's a huge part of the story. And then now that I've read Edge Dancer and Zeth is with him, I'm like, oh, this is a big
Right.
deal. I don't know that I would have
Right.
thought it was a big deal before.
And it become again that whole thing becomes even bigger deal as
Yeah,
when you're in part five. So
and I don't even know what I don't even know, other than her showing up in some of the visions, and she shows up and eats Dalinar's lunch in that one scene. They really like Lift is not a big part of the story where I'm at yet, you
Right.
know, and I keep waiting on that to kick in and be more important. But right now, it's just she's
Can't
just this
wait.
background character that
You just need to finish it tonight. Just stay up all night and listen to it. Don't go to work tomorrow.
I almost want to. Yeah, I need to
Leave
go.
really early for work and just drive around for 2 or
Yeah,
3
just
hours
drive around
before
for
you
an extra
get there.
couple hours. Yeah, I might read. I
It's
might
worth
read
it.
the
I
next
mean, like
chapter tonight.
honestly, it is worth it. It's so good. It's so good. And you know, the other we need to do this too. We didn't talk about Renarin really and what's happened with him
That
and
is that storyline. I read something. I'm not the chapter I'm on right now. I'm halfway through, and they just touched on. Yasna noticed that he had like a void sprint or something like that, and
yes.
literally that was like the last sentence that I heard before I paused what I was doing. So it's I'm about to find out details on that, but I don't know yet. So next
Yes.
episode we'll wrap up the whole book, and
I'll try and take some notes, put a little outline for what we need to talk about next time.
yeah, me too. I'll try to write some stuff down, and we'll make it like more of like a Oathbringer review kind of thing.
Right.
But no, I like doing these check-ins because there's a lot of stuff that I didn't realize I comprehended until you and I discussed it, and then I
Right.
realized I picked up more than I thought I did. I have this thing with reading, and this is part of why I struggled to read whenever I was younger. Is like I would constantly have to reread things because I would feel like I didn't internalize enough, and so
Right.
I would go back and I'd reread it, and I would do that so many times that like I couldn't get through a book, which is why audio listening to audiobooks has helped me because
That's
I don't
helped me a lot too.
with audiobooks you're on the train, you have to pay attention and
You
just keep
have to pay
going.
attention.
You
Right.
can't
Exactly.
yeah, if you go back and keep listening over and over again, you're never going to get through it. And I like to do both on these Brandon Sanderson books. So I'm listening to 90% of it because as they're just so long. But I doing the podcast, I realized that I'm that's all in my head. I'm retaining way more than I think I am, and it's
Yeah.
not like I got a book report at the end of this. You know what I mean? Like it's just
Right.
as long as I enjoyed it and I picked up enough of the story that I enjoy it. But these books are dense, dude.
They
After
are
reading
very.
after reading 3 of these books, and the Dark Tower is pretty crazy too, just because of the way Stephen King writes in those books, where he's just like in all these prose and it's all over the place. Um, but you
It's
know,
gonna. That one's gonna get crazier from here on out
yeah, I
too.
know it.
So
I know it. But reading anything else now, like that's not Stephen King or Brandon Sanderson, just feels like easy mode. Like
exactly.
I can
Just
just get
blow through it.
yeah. But man, I'm really enjoying these books. I don't know what to pick next because um, I'm ready to jump back into the Dark Tower, but I wanted to pick something that was unlike anything we've done so far. But I don't know what it should be. Um, I don't know. We got to think about it. We got to think
We'll
about it
see.
and try to come up with something.
Yeah.
The one thing. So there's a trilogy. There's a Star Trek trilogy that I've read 2 books of, and I haven't read the third book yet. And I thought about picking the first book back up with you, and we
Right.
could do it. But I don't know. I know that you've watched Star Trek, but I don't know how into the Star Trek universe you are. If that would
I
be a
mean, I
good
love
one.
Star Trek. So
Um, but even that, I don't know. I don't know what to do next. We need to think about it. But it's definitely gonna be something light because I want to get one. I want something that's like a refresher, but then also like that we can move on and get into the next Dark Tower book.
yeah.
Quickly as possible.
Well, like I said, we'll watch that. Watch 1899.
Yeah,
We'll do that, and then we'll find something that's yeah, like a nice little read, and then maybe jump back into Wastelands after that.
yeah. I think that'd be good. I'm definitely gonna watch that show though. So we'll do
Yeah,
those.
you're gonna like that.
And I don't read at the same time I would watch shows, so it's not slowing me down to watch a show.
That's why I thought. That's why I
Yeah,
thought it's a good idea to do something with a show because it doesn't really interfere. Same with me.
right. All right. Well,
All right.
I've got to pee, so we need to end this thing.
All right. It was a long one, but a good one.
It was very good. It was very good. Oh wow, yeah. Oh man, we're almost at 2 hours. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week with the finale of
Finale.
Oathbringer. Finally, I've been reading this book since September.
I know, right?
We did it. We took a break though. I haven't been reading it steady since September, but
We're about to go into a new year in one book.
I know it feels that way. All right, thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. Peace, bitches.
Peace out.